That's cool. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 29th, 2023 meeting of the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to welcome everyone. If everyone would please take a moment and silence their cell phones. I'd like to begin by introducing members of the board. Starting at my far right, or the audience's left, is Jerry Patamus. He is an associate member. Moving to the audience's right is Mark Finneran. He is a full voting member. My name is James Morse. I'm currently serving as the chair. To my left is Suzanne Murphy, who is the clerk and a full voting member. Next is Scott Peterson, who is the vice chairman and a full voting member. And our newest member at the end is Tony Pederucci, who is an associate member. We are also joined this evening by Noreen Stockman, the zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, who is our recording secretary. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town's zoning bylaws and reviewing and voting on applications. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public and to allow a full and fair discussion of a project prior to rendering a decision. To begin each hearing, the clerk will read the pertinent announcement from the hearing and read pertinent information into the file. The applicant or applicant's representatives will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation. Time may be extended by vote of the board. The board will then question the applicant. Next, the public will be invited to comment. Public comment should be directed only at the project. Please refrain from making any personal or derogatory statements. It can include an opinion in favor or against the project or to ask specific questions. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes. The chair will limit discussion in the interest of time if comments become repetitive. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair. Come to the podium. Please introduce yourself, stating your name and address for the record. Please speak into the microphone. It does not amplify your voice, but is provided for the benefit of FCTV viewers. The board may then continue a hearing to a future date and time. Otherwise, when the board is satisfied that enough information has been presented to make a decision, the hearing will be closed. After the hearing is closed, no more testimony will be taken. The board will then discuss the proposal amongst themselves and make a motion to approve or deny the application. The motion will be followed by a summary of key findings and conditions. The affirmative vote of 4 members, a supermajority, is required for the approval of special permits, variances, or appeals. A split vote, for example 3-2, is a failure to carry and would result in a denial. Any zoning board of appeals decision may be appealed as provided for in Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 17. Before we move into our agenda items this evening, the board would like to take a moment of silence for Ray Jack, the town's former DPW director, who passed away on June 17th, 2023. Prior to his retirement, Ray worked for the town for over 25 years and was a U.S. Army veteran. We extend our condolences to Ray's family. Thank you very much. First up on the agenda is public comment. This public comment is reserved for things that are not specifically on tonight's agenda. Does any member of the public wish to make a public comment for anything that is not currently on tonight's agenda? First up is a continuation, number 105-22, Bowen, trustee, 102 Grand Ave, Falmouth, requesting modification of existing permits, number 110-15 and 37-21. There is a request to continue this originally to 7:20. However, Mr. Clower, we were informed this evening that there will be 4 members that evening as well. So 7:27 will be the next night. We have a full.
That's perfectly fine by me.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to continue this to 7:27. Is there a second?
Second.
Give that to Scott. Does the board need to discuss this motion at all?
Nope.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is a vote. Continue to 7:27. We're going to jump around a little bit to open meeting unless I'll move through unanimous consent. We're going to table the minutes of June 22nd, 2023. We are going to postpone reorganization of the board. I was shocked when I saw this. I said it's been a year already. One of our full voting members, Mr. Duffy's not here, and at the next meeting of the 20th, Scott Peterson will not be here, so we will take this up on 7:27. We'll dispose of number 3. And I'm going to take up, if the board is all right with it, number 2 on open meeting, a request for an insubstantial change, modification of comprehensive permit number 58-19, 36 Crooked Meadow Road, Hatchville.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Nice to see you again, Mr. Marioni.
My name is Nick Marioni. I'm here representing the owner. When this project was first filed back in 2019, we had requested this site plan for approval. It showed 6 guest parking spaces and no sidewalk on the activity area. That plan was not approved, and what ultimately got approved was this plan, which took out the guest parking, and it was not the applicant that took out the guest parking, it was the board. They added a sidewalk on the inside, and they added vertical, non-mountable curbing so that the people couldn't park on the sidewalk. We then filed for an insubstantial change, asking to change it back to add some, to take out the sidewalk and add some guest parking. That insubstantial change was deemed to be substantial, and the board held a public hearing and again denied our request for guest parking. So we're here in front of you tonight looking to further change the plan with an insubstantial change, adding guest parking in this area. I'll bring up the site plan to show it better. So what we want to do is put guest parking here that's shaded in red. We asked to put a post and rail fence along here so that people won't park on the lawn. We're proposing that to be 18 inches off the back of the curbing. And we're going to add this landscaping in this area because the electric panel for the pumps on the septic system, we hadn't anticipated the size and girth of them, so now we're trying to camouflage them and add a stone walkway to a couple of benches out here so that the residents can use the lawn area without just creating footpaths in the lawn. So that's the request. That's my couple of minutes, and I'd like to hear what the board has to say about it.
Questions from the board? Start with you, Jerry.
No comments at this time.
Mark?
So the curbing is gonna be where the parking, the granite curbing is gonna be where the parking spaces are?
I believe that the peer review engineer for the town made a suggestion that instead of putting fence behind the parking, that we put, he said granite curbing. We're gonna suggest vertical curbing, could be concrete, as long as it's vertical.
Suzanne?
Just about what I was going to ask, so I'm all set.
Mark?
I'd be interested in hearing what, hopefully some of the residents can give us some guidance to. I'm driving through, clearly there is a need for additional capacity if somebody was to come and visit. I guess when you're looking at this stone dust walkway, any reason why it's stone dust and not paved?
Well, paving adds to the lot coverage of parking, paving, and roof.
I agree.
And
Are you at that threshold? You aren't?
that might put us over it,
It could?
yeah.
Okay.
37 to 40?
It's at 40 and we're at 38.6 right now.
And what's the size of the lot?
2 acres, 80,000 square feet. It's all calculated on the plan.
Yeah, no, I agree. That could be. Yeah, no, I'd like to hear from some of the residents, hopefully, this evening also.
Tony?
I'd just like to ask, originally, you were supposed to have granite curbing, vertical granite curbing going around the entire perimeter of this?
It wasn't necessarily granite, just, it said, the
Vertical?
condition said vertical, non-mountable curbing. So it could have been concrete, and that's what we had planned to
So now
use.
you're asking to put in that concrete curbing?
Well, we're asking to put in a fence. The recommendation from the peer review engineer was at this area where the parking is, because we're right at the edge of the septic system, the leaching field, that we don't put fence posts there, which would have done the same thing, but he had a problem with fence posts that close to the leaching field, that we put the curbing in instead. vertical curbing.
Now, vertical curbing is generally put in for safety reasons, isn't it? In other words, to keep cars from going up and over.
It keeps them from mounting the curb, from mounting the area, but so does a fence. You know, you can, but I understand his point about no fence in that area.
I understand that, too. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marion, I don't have a problem with the addition of the parking spaces, and I don't have a problem with the trees that you want to add around the septic box, so to speak, that's there. I don't have a problem with the footpath, but I think I was the only person who's still on the board who was here for this decision back in 2019. And my recollection, looking through the minutes, was that the curbing, the issue about Cape Cod berm versus the vertical non-mounted was a very specific condition. And in going up there, now that Cape Cod berm is there, I'm getting very frustrated with these kind of last-minute changes when this was a very specific condition. So,
If I might just address that.
Certainly, sir.
The condition was when they took out the guest parking. For some reason, the board at that time did not think we should have guest parking. And to make sure we couldn't have the guest park there, they instructed, they put a condition in that we have vertical, non-mountable curbing, so they couldn't go up on and park there.
piggybacking on Tony's comment, yes, that was the discussion, my recollection and going through my notes, is the concern was that people would either be pulling in, parking, or as they were parking, that motor vehicles could intentionally or otherwise inadvertently access an area that's being used for recreation areas for children and so on, so. Any other follow-up questions?
I do.
Mark?
What would be the, am I out of line? Tell me, what would be the, what would stop you from putting unmountable curbing all the way around to protect everyone equally?
It wasn't, I don't know what it's protecting, I'm not sure I
Well,
understand.
Non-mountable curb certainly suggests that's what it's for.
Well, it's not protected, it was to keep us from parking there. And the fence does the same thing with a much nicer look, that's all. You'd have to hit the fence and knock it down to park there.
I believe there's a certain factor of safety with the non-mountable granite curb. That's all for the moment.
Does any member of the public like to make a comment on this request? Do we have anyone who's residing in the neighborhood? Sir, please.
I am Jonathan Giacomini. I live in Unit 3B in this complex. I am full support of this change. We definitely need more parking. As it is right now, we're overflowing, which is eventually going to make us park in the street. There are 3-bedroom units, and each unit has 2 parking spaces. So if you do the math, we're going to overflow in time. Very soon. I myself have a child. If I end up getting married like I plan to, that's going to be 3 cars in the future. So we need this parking. It's a tiny change. I think it's efficient, effective. I'm not sure I understand the argument for non-mountable curbing versus fence. A vehicle could just as easily overtake a curb as it could a fence. So I don't understand the argument for safety there. I do understand the need to prevent vehicles to park in the grassy area, which a fence could easily do. So on that note, I'm in full support of this, and I'd like to make that for the record.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Other public comment?
I'm in support of it, too.
Mind just identifying yourself? Thank you, sir.
Mike Hoffman, I'm in 5A, and I support it, too. As long as there's no fence at the parking, because they're kind of narrow, and you need to back up so we don't hit the fence. But the fence going around with the extra parking's good, and I'm in support of it, too.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Oh, go right ahead. Thank you, sir.
Where you're asking for the guest parking, I saw cars parking there today.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Where you're asking for the guest parking, I saw cars parking there today.
We built it that way.
Oh, okay.
We, knowing that the risk was, if we don't get approved, we gotta put the sidewalk in and put the curbing in. We built it that way just because of the need at the time out there. So,
No, I'm not.
yeah, no,
I
no,
see
and
the
and
need
we've,
for it, I'm
we've been
just-
reprimanded for this before.
Oh, have you? Yeah.
Doing things without approval. The problem was we couldn't get the plan done while we had the landscapers and everybody there, so we gambled.
Okay. That's all I have.
So for the board's purpose, I did go out and do a site visit yesterday. I guess however you fall on the fence is whatever you deem rational. I guess what I would say, though, from a resident point of view, is that that green area is essentially their shared front lawn or backyard or whatever else it is. And if there's a fence, the full perimeter, it sort of blocks people's access. Right now, they've designed it so that there's only 2 access points on either side to access that green area. I would say that's not terribly inviting for the folks that live there to use that green space. It sort of looks like it's, you know, more of a fence, like keep out type of atmosphere in my mind. I would not be a fan of the stone dust path. I think that's hard to maintain, but I think stone dust also has an unusual character to it in that it's not necessarily a stable surface for people to walk on. And I don't know that it would hold up well over time. I think the other concern I had was the large septic vents that you can see protruding from that green lawn area. They stick out like the proverbial sore thumb. And I think it's unfortunate because, you know, you come into this brand-new complex and this is what you see. So I have provided for the board's benefit, I can give you a copy as well. There is a company, and there's probably others as well, that make septic vent covers so that they look aesthetically more pleasing. It looks like a bird bath, or you can put plant on it or some other thing. And I would say where this is permanently going to be in these folks' front yards, that would be something that would be worthwhile, or they could plant around it. I just think it makes sense that something be done with that. I also noticed that there were some pieces of metal pipe stubs protruding about 4 or 6 inches just out of the grass in front of the units. I would consider that to be a safety hazard and would recommend that that be repaired or covered or it needs to be dealt with. Yeah, I think, oh, and there's also a resident who's deaf and has asked for some signage to be installed. I think that's a reasonable request, given that, you know, it's for their safety purposes, that vehicles coming in, you can beep at somebody, right? But if the person can't hear you, that's not of value. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request that, you know, maybe at either entrance to the complex that's put in.
Any response, sir?
I would absolutely be happy to put up the signs. I agree with how unsightly those things are for the septic system. Unfortunately, you may have noticed if you've been out there before, we had to raise them because Title V requires the bottom of the vent to be 3 feet above the ground. But great idea to camouflage them with a look at the bird bath or other camouflage. If not, we could do shrubs. So those are all good ideas and good input, but I disagree with the notion that 2 access points is restricting to people. You can't just have them walking in at anywhere on the lawn, you know, so we try to create central access points where everybody can access them easily, so it's in front of building 2 and 5, which is the middle on both sides, and that way have a place to walk in without trampling the lawn. So that's why we designed it this way, not to make it look like a prison or something, which is almost what it sounds like.
Just
Right,
install
but-
some access points where the 2 paths come out to the side of the road there?
I'm sorry?
Could you install access points where the paths join the road? the dust stone path there? Should you have?
The yellow
opening?
line?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the entrances, the fence, breaking the fence and a place for people to access. And, you know, it's just as easy for this building to access it there as it is for this one or this one, to access that point. And these three buildings can access it from this point. And they get to the same central area where we have two benches on concrete pads. And just a place to sit. There's some shrubs giving you a little privacy from the street.
Jerry?
Going back to the stone dust, I agree. It's difficult to maintain. Would you consider dense grade, which is basically
Yeah,
crushed gravel?
dense grade would work. We also, so it doesn't travel, we have metal edging on the sides, so it's,
Although you can also put in pervious pavers, and you don't get charged for lot coverage by
Could.
structure parking paving
the
with
grass
that.
grows in between them and their maintenance, less maintenance, I think, than this.
I also was looking from the inside of the development toward Crooked Meadow Road, and it appears as though there've been deciduous trees and shrubs planted along the frontage, but nothing of evergreen nature. And I thought that it might make sense to consider putting a couple of evergreens along the street line where the berm is.
I think what we did was we put in exactly what was on the approved landscape plan. And it didn't show any evergreens. These are the evergreens over in here. So it just didn't show any evergreens here.
Right.
We're requesting to add, the ones we're adding on this plan, these 6 evergreens in here, I think we put in, I forget if we put in white pines or arborvitae, but either one of them grows a foot to 18 inches a year. And they'll give us some privacy there pretty quickly, too.
Right, but that's just essentially to protect that transformer that was installed.
Well, it's not a transformer, it's an electric panel.
All right,
It's an
electric
ugly,
panel, right,
ugly
yeah.
wood panel with electric meters on it. And to give the people sitting here a little privacy.
And you've already done that.
That's,
Yeah, that's, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Jerry?
I'm confused as to what exactly is this insubstantial change. We have what he came in with, and then we've added some. I guess we can do that.
So the original requirement was that there be a vertical curbing around the full perimeter edge of the green area, and that a sidewalk be installed with the intent that the residents could use that area to walk along, and the vertical curbing was to keep vehicles off of that green area. So it now appears as though they're looking to not install a sidewalk or to have a path through the green area instead of having a perimeter sidewalk. And they're looking to allow, to have the Cape Cod berm that they installed used instead of the vertical curbing.
Thank you.
Discussion on the request?
Well, not if, apparently when we had the original approval, and it would have had that sidewalk all the way around. So I don't think if you were to make the stone dust asphalt, to me, it's the equivalent of what would have been approved previously. So I don't think you're gonna tripwire the coverage issue that you mentioned. So you could still make this walkway asphalt, because the original approval had a walkway all the way around, correct? So I don't think you're gonna tripwire that percentile
it didn't
issue.
have this parking, though. That's,
Yeah,
and we made the buildings bigger on the last insubstantial change, so it increased the coverage. So we're
got a
we're
building
right on the
now,
edge
so-
now.
pardon me?
We're right on the edge now, because we have increased it a couple of times already. You remember the last insubstantial change made all the buildings 2 foot.
Correct, yeah, I forgot that portion of it. I mean, from a, looking at the document, I think having the 6-foot-high privacy fence makes sense. The guest parking makes sense. Again, I don't like the fact that you jumped ahead of what was approved to kind of do something on your own. That's not what this whole process is about, quite honestly. I know it's very difficult to get help, and when you do get help, you want to try and accomplish as much as possible. So I think that kind of to some of Noreen's comments, I definitely would like to see some of these other items corrected if we're to approve what you've outlined for us this evening.
And the other comment Noreen made that I'll address too is those pipes, those PVC pipes sticking out of the ground are Comcast pipes. If they're not gonna be used, if every resident now has their Comcast in, we'll cap those right at grade and,
Yeah,
Could be
that
done.
was another safety hazard, correct, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
No
we just wanna
further
be sure everybody's done what they have to do with them before we do that. But that's on our punch list too, along with many other things out there that we still need to do to finish up.
Scott, what's your overall feeling, approval or denial based on the request?
Approve, and partially, you know, heavily weighted on the folks that live there are in support of it, at least for the two that showed up this evening.
Suzanne?
Is the mailbox shown on that plan?
The mailbox is already in, and it's right in the middle of those two
I
parking spaces.
went by
right
today,
here.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Mark?
What's the total length of that walkway?
I don't know, the 160 feet, both sides added up. It was 320 feet all the way around, and that's about half of it.
Well, you got about 1,100 square feet before you hit 40, if you're at 38.6.
But we added this pavement in here too.
But didn't that bring you up to the 38.6?
No, that's not approved yet.
But here's the other point is you've got a comprehensive permit, so you're allowed to exceed lot coverage in this circumstance. So I would not look at that as being a limit to what could or couldn't be done.
Well, it'd be kind of nice to see something a little more permanent on that walk, would you not
I
think?
agree with you.
Could that be a condition of this approval?
Well, I think, you know, obviously the board directed a sidewalk around the perimeter edge before. That was what was requested. That was not what was installed. So,
But is the answer, we could approve this with conditions?
I don't see why not.
Okay,
I
just
mean,
one-
just personally, sidewalk meandering through the center area there, I get that they're gonna put a bench in there or something, but it doesn't particularly make sense to me from a usability point of view. I mean, I'd be more informed or suggest that if they're gonna put that post and rail fence around, that they just put it in sections so that, you know, people can access that green area from wherever they are. And that will keep the vehicles off and give you that aesthetic look without the block out.
Your feeling on this, Jerry?
No, I agree. I mean, I'd like to get a positive decision, but I don't know how we can approve the increase in pervious area even though we don't know what it is. I guess, how do we put in, I think Noreen makes some points about breaking up the fence. I don't think that's terribly difficult to do. They're just gonna put an extra post in every place they need a gateway in or a walkway in.
I think the board just wants to see more access and openings, Mr. Marioni, so I'm sure that's something that you can do without necessarily us managing it.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. yeah.
Not to mention abiding by the conditions.
I can leave, you know, create these little 4-foot openings at, you know, every second section of fence. All it's gonna mean is people are trampling the lawn, I don't care. I think they would care, but.
So my feeling on this is, I'll approve, looking at the language of the CMRs, it doesn't trigger substantial, whether we like the aesthetics of it or not, so I'm gonna be a yes, but primarily just because of neighbors speaking about the need for the additional parking. Residents, excuse me.
Can I speak again?
I agree with you.
So I'll make a motion to approve the change as insubstantial, how should we condition this, Noreen?
I guess we can sort of go down the list. You know, are you in favor of the proposed sidewalk? Do you want the sidewalk that you originally proposed that went around the perimeter? I mean, we could go through the items one by one.
I'm okay with, personally, what Mr. Marion is proposing. I'd prefer to see it with pavers or something a little more impervious so that people can walk on it. People with disabilities may not have difficulty in it. I think it would hold up over time a little bit better than
In a stroller. A
yeah,
stroller can
dust
go
down
on.
or someone who's in a wheelchair or otherwise.
Okay. So then, next item would be whether you want any of the vertical curbing or not, and if so, where?
I would like to see vertical curbing in front of the parking areas. If it's not practical, let them come back to you. We'll let you make an adjustment as you see fit. I don't want to keep this coming back every time someone needs to change something on this project that's de minimis.
No,
but-
Is that with the fence?
Will we stick with the curb for a second?
Well, that's what I meant on the vertical curb.
Is there a definition for an unmountable curb? It would obviously be the height as opposed to a regular curb. What's the height of that?
That's a good question. I don't know that I specifically have one. I'm sure there's probably something that's quote
No, they have them,
standard.
because they always
But-
catch the front of your car up.
Yeah. So, do you want a fence around the full perimeter? Do you want fence segments? Do you want to skip the fencing where the guest parking will be because you have vertical curb there? I mean, actually, that might be more aesthetically pleasing.
It's to fence the whole thing around, actually, rather than vertical curbing. I think aesthetically, it just would look better.
To have the fencing the full,
Yes.
and then just have gaps every
Yeah.
2 sections?
Yes.
Because I guess the other part too is they're obviously gonna have to be able to get whatever used to mow into that center area as well.
I'm not trying to make it more complex, but as a gap or is it a gate?
Just
I
a
mean,
gap.
part of the rationale of having the fencing versus a vertical all the way around is for safety. So should there be just a couple more gated areas that if a person needed to open it up, but again, if it's
Personally,
a safety issue, that was kind of the sole driver originally, was to have that vertical sidewalk. Now we're giving up the vertical sidewalk, so should the fence be, in essence, contiguous, it would just have a gate.
Well, I'm thinking that the fence, I mean, is probably a visual reference for people that might think to park up on that Cape Cod berm that obviously you can't because the fence is there. That being said, if you have fence segments and then you have, say, a 4-foot gap, that's obviously not gonna be enough for a vehicle, right?
That's fine.
But then, you know, people that live there can easily get in and out,
Yeah,
right? It's not.
That's fine.
In my words.
Mr.
I agree.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Marioni, go ahead.
One of the reasons we're here is because the board, who was sitting at the time this was approved, redesigned what we had submitted. We're back doing the same thing now. We're requesting an insubstantial change, and you guys are redesigning it on us, when really, I think what you have the obligation to do is discuss some of those things, and see if we're willing to do it. Otherwise, you can approve it as an insubstantial change, or deny it. You can't deny it. You can deem it substantial and hold a public hearing.
We're trying to get to yes, though, sir.
Pardon me?
We're just trying to get to yes tonight for you.
So you don't have to come back.
You don't have to come back.
The redesign, these people are living there, not you. You guys are redesigning their neighborhood.
We're only redesigning a fence opening. That's kind of, I'd say that's insubstantial to your ask.
I think the
The
issue
curbing,
is-
excuse me, Noreen, the curbing was a very specific safety issue.
Yeah.
That could be the basis of a no.
It wasn't done for safety issues. You sat on that meeting. They specifically wanted to make sure we couldn't park on that sidewalk. They took out the guest parking and made sure we couldn't park there by putting the curbing there, non-mountable, so we couldn't get cars up there. It wasn't for safety. It was for no guest parking.
Right, that is the safety issue, is
Non-mountable
to
is a
keep the
safety
vehicles
issue.
off the sidewalk where people would be walking. So that is safety.
And
It's both. It's both.
Go ahead, Mark.
Non-mountable is obviously a safety feature. And it appears to me that you've redesigned.
We're making the request for an insubstantial change.
You rolled the dice, hoping that we're gonna give you what you want, Mr.
And
Mayor.
if you don't, we'll have to build it according to your approved plan and come back and get it finalized.
So as again, I'm trying to get you to yes. Are you willing to do what we're asking?
It depends on what you're asking, redesigning.
Just a few more openings in the fence.
I'll put a few more openings in the fence.
Then I think we're pretty much there.
I don't think that there's a need for gates. I think if you have.
No,
an
no,
op-
I'm
yeah,
fine, I'm fine.
Yeah, if you have an opening,
Yeah.
no car's gonna go through it,
Yeah, I'm good.
yeah.
So fence,
Okay.
we're okay.
Yep.
No parking is fine.
Yeah.
Parking's fine.
PVC.
Either landscaping or septic covers for those septic vents that are in that green area.
I'll have to talk to the Board of Health about that, but if they allow
I
those
got, I
things.
got it from the
Oh, you
Board of
did,
Health.
okay, then I'll be happy to do those. Yeah, I'll be happy to put
Okay.
those.
That.
What are they, bird baths, Noreen?
They can be.
Does
They,
he have this?
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get, yeah.
The signage, we wanted signage also.
The
Oh,
capping of the
signage,
compound.
yes.
Yeah.
Signage for your,
Hearing impaired.
notice, yeah.
And the capping of the Comcast pipes.
And are you gonna put any signs up about no parking along the fence?
I don't
Along
know
the-
that you need to do that. Wouldn't
Okay.
you think that if the fence is close enough to the curbing that somebody could not do that?
Have you ever seen parking around here in the summertime?
Really?
I'm not gonna push it if it's not an issue, but
I mean, because this is essentially these folks' like shared driveway, so I think, you don't want to have it too commercial, that, they're living in a sea of signs either, right? And maybe that's something that their homeowners association looks at over time and says, hey, people aren't paying attention, or,
fair enough. Everything on the list acceptable to you now?
Did you get the Comcast?
Openings in the fence, covers on the vents?
Additional parking is approved.
and then the peer engineer did have some items that they've shared that they understand we have a bond for them to finish that work.
I'll leave that to you and the building, whether the bond is gonna get released or not.
And then the
we,
40 feet of 6-foot
See if there's
privacy
a
fence.
definition for unmountable curb?
There's pictures of it online.
I don't wanna
It's not
bog
what I
down the
thought.
request, we have other
What's the
hearings this
height?
evening, so.
It just said pictures. It does-
Submitted
it's
a
like
motion
4 or
to
5 inches.
approve, we've just gone through the list, is there a second? Was there a second? Give that to Suzanne. Is there any further discussion needed?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, under new hearings, we have 40-23 Quinn, 32 Frederick B. Douglass Road, North Falmouth, requesting a special permit to allow a third garage bay.
Simplify.
Ready?
Go right ahead.
We have Shay and Jennifer Quinn, 32 Frederick B. Douglass Road, North Falmouth, Mass. Apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Section 240-6.6 Code of Falmouth to allow a third garage bay. The subject property is 32 Frederick. And from the town departments, we have the assessors, no comment. We have planning, no comment. We have water, see attached. Okay, hold on with water. If the water department says, please call to have the water department mark the curb stop location prior to any excavation. Location is shown as approximate on the plan. The fire department has no issues, health department has no issues. And then we have engineering. This application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Frederick B. Douglass Road is a public right-of-way in this area. The proposed alterations do not impact the public rights-of-way, therefore no driveway or street opening permit will be required. Any changes within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. Any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property, abutters, or public rights-of-ways. Number 4, dry wells are proposed for the new roof, as we typically recommend. 5, erosion controls are shown on the plan and appear to be adequate to protect abutting properties and the public right-of-way. And we recommend the following condition be included. Construction of this project shall follow the town's soil, erosion, and sediment control standard conditions. The document can be found on the Engineering Division's page of the town website. References to the Town Department of Public Works Engineering Department shall be replaced with the Zoning Board of Appeals, who is the permitting authority. And it's all yours, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney here in Falmouth, and I will be before you for the next 2 hearings. So, welcome. I'm representing Shay and Jennifer Quinn in their application for a special permit for the property at 32 Frederick B. Douglass Road. Shay is with us here this evening. This property is in the North Hill neighborhood. It is in a residential B zoning district. The lot is just over 22,000 square feet. The Quinns purchased this property in 2019, and they're constructing an addition to accommodate their growing family. Existing is a 3-bedroom dwelling with a footprint of 2,501 square feet. It's entirely conforming both to lot coverage and setback requirements. They recently obtained a building permit to expand the existing garage and to add additional living space above. That permit was issued earlier this spring by the building department. They'd like to convert the additional space in the garage all the way to the left into what is essentially a third garage bay, which requires a special permit under 240-66B, 6.6B rather. It's a unique situation, actually. There will be 3 garage bays, but this first garage bay is effectively useless from a car parking perspective. There's stairs, there's the backside of the fireplace chimney. It's more of a utility area. It's used primarily for storage. So by adding a 3rd bay, they're actually creating a 2-car garage. There's no standards that are set forth in the bylaw for a special permit for a 3-car garage, so we have to look to the standards of 240-12.1E, formerly 216. The threshold question there is, does the proposed use have an adverse effect that overbalances its beneficial effects to the neighborhood and town? The answer is no. There's no adverse effects to this project. The lot is more than adequate in size. The site is more than suitable. There's no impact on traffic flow and safety. There's no change to the neighborhood visual character, and there's no change in utilities or public services. In sum, this does not create any nonconformities. It's in no way detrimental to the neighborhood, and it meets all the standards of 240-12.1E. I believe the board can and should grant the special permit. I'd be happy to address any questions that you might have at this time.
Start with you, Tony.
I have no questions at this time.
Welcome, Mr. Petrucci. Well,
Thank you.
We're very excited to see you here.
Oh.
I hope may your judgments be fair, and when I'm happy to see you here.
Thank you.
I should have said at the beginning of the hearing, I do need to appoint an alternate. I'm going to appoint Tony tonight on this one. Gary, you get the next one. Thank you. Scott?
Kevin, Attorney Clower, did you say 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms?
So currently, it's a 3-bedroom house. The septic is designed for 4.
Okay. So the room up above, it's just being called a bonus room, and it has a full bath?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kid's play area.
Shell driveway in front of the 3rd bay? Is that
Yes.
correct? No, it seems to make an awful lot of sense. Thank you.
I have nothing. It looks like a good project.
Mark?
Pretty straightforward, basically.
Jerry?
No comment.
Motorcycles? Get them in there. I have no questions.
Okay.
Discussion? Oh, public comment, excuse me. Seeing none.
Quiet group?
Quiet night.
You want to close the hearing?
Do we need any discussion?
Don't believe so.
Is there a motion?
Motion closed.
Give it to Scott, second to Suzanne. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing is closed. No more testimony will take. Does the board need discussion on the project? How would we like to proceed?
Motion to approve?
I'm going to give that to Mark. I'll give the second.
Second, give it to Scott.
Findings.
Findings, let's get that paperwork out. Here we go. All right, it's in an RB zone. The overlay district is Narragansett Harbor. It's wildlife foraging. The lot size is 22,132. It's a public right-of-way. It's now 11.4 structure, and all combined is 17.9. Proposed is 13.4 over 21.69. That's about it. It's a 240-6.6. That's about all I have.
Based on the plans, Noreen, you can just reference that essentially it's a two-car garage bay, that the third bay is basically the architectural design is such that it's really not effective for use of a car or for a garage or a full-size car. No opposition at the hearing. There's nothing in the file in favor or against.
Nope.
Any other findings? Conditions?
Water Department.
Yep, water and engineering, any comments from the town departments?
Per plans, yep.
Per plans, normal hours of work.
All the structures.
There was one question about the additional space with the stairway and whether there should be some statement about it being a single-family use and not separately rented if that back space that above the garage can be separately accessed.
I think having a condition that it's not to be rented as a separate unit until such time as it was permitted as such, perfectly fine.
Throw it in then.
No intent for that, but
Standard hours of work.
No other structures, you already got that?
Yep, no other structures. If they can't keep construction materials and vehicles off the road, just have them work with the police department to come up with a plan.
It's a good project.
Anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, their lot coverage is fine. They have Title V.
Yep.
And just the water.
4-bedroom septic unit they're fighting. 3 bedrooms is what it's listed, so. Anything else? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Next up, we have 041-23, Farah, trustees of 26 Loomis Lane, West Falmouth, requesting a special permit to raise the existing non-conforming detached garage and rebuild a 3-car garage with habitable space above.
We have Joseph G. and Gita,
Get up.
I'm saying it, is that right? Gita Farah, 26 Loomis Lane, West Falmouth, applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to section 240-102A and 240-6.6B of the Code of Falmouth to raise the existing non-conforming detached garage and rebuild the 3-car garage with habitable space above. Subject property is 26 Loomis Lane in West Falmouth. And from town departments, we have no comment from fire. Water Department. The existing water line does not appear to be impacted by the proposed construction. If the garage second floor is potentially going to be used for a second dwelling unit, a separate water service will be required. Planning. The proposed habitable space above the garage appears to have space for cooking facilities, which would create an accessory apartment. If so, it appears the said apartment would exceed allowable size in the zoning bylaw. Health Department. A 6-bedroom septic system was installed in 2009 so the capacity is adequate for the proposed project. If this project is considered as an accessory apartment, identifying septic system component would be required per the bylaw. If not, the health has no issues with this proposal. And then we have engineering. Number 1, this application was reviewed for impacts to the public rights-of-way and public utilities. Loomis Lane is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed to the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. It appears that hedges, light posts, and a gate are located within the public right-of-way. Permanent installation of objects not owned by the town located within the municipal right-of-way typically require a license from the select board. We defer to the Zoning Board of Appeals if this matter should be addressed prior to any approval or as a condition of any approval. 3, any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. The project must not direct any stormwater runoff to public property or butters or public rights-of-way. And 5, where this project falls in the jurisdiction of the Concom, we defer to the Conservation Commission. We defer to the Conservation Commission for stormwater management and construction erosion controls. That was engineering. We appoint a Concom decision, approved. which we can just incorporate later. Let's see if I have anything else. Oh, getting there. That's all I have. And there are no letters of support or opposition.
Council, good evening.
Good evening again. For the record, Kevin Clower. I'm representing Joseph and Gitta Ferra, the owners of 26 Lummis Lane. They're seeking permission to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming garage and second dwelling on the property. So this property, 26 Lummis Lane, is located on the northern side of Snug Harbor, which is part of West Falmouth Harbor. I am going to say it.
Yeah, it is. I was waiting.
It is probably the prettiest part of town, arguably. This particular lot is 36,700 square feet. It's in a residential B zoning district. Though a portion of the lot and the primary dwelling are in the flood zone, the garage is not. The site presently contains a 3-bedroom single-family dwelling, as well as a detached garage / second dwelling with 2 bedrooms. The total footprint is 3,104 square feet, which is only 8.46 lot coverage by structure. The garage is non-conforming in a few ways. It's an accessory structure located in the front yard. It's 27.1 feet where 50 is required. And it's also non-conforming as it is a second dwelling. It currently contains a kitchen and 2 bedrooms. It has since long before the Ferras purchased this property. Otherwise, it conforms with setback and lot coverage requirements. The Ferras purchased this in 2009, and the accessory structure is currently in poor condition, and they'd like to actually utilize it as a garage, which you can't do in its current configuration. So far as they're aware, the current structure has always had a kitchen. However, we can't satisfy the bylaw requirement of getting back to May 19th, 1959, because the records show the garage was constructed in 1962. So what's being proposed is a 3-car garage with an additional habitable space on the second floor. It's not intended to be a dwelling. It's not intended to be an accessory dwelling unit. They will eliminate it as a non-conforming second dwelling on the lot. The kitchen is removed. It is no longer a dwelling. The space is intended only as accessory to the primary dwelling. Though it is expanded in size slightly, the lot coverage by structure is still only 9.28%, well below the 20% that is allowed. And this lot coverage by structure, paving, and parking is likewise well below the 40% that's allowed. As I mentioned, it eliminates the second dwelling. There's no cooking facilities in the proposed structure. More than happy to condition that in the decision, more than happy to condition it as not being a separately rentable unit. There's no change to the non-conforming front yard setback that will remain at 27.1, and the ridge height will remain conforming at 21 feet 10 inches. This does require a special permit under 240-10.2A, formerly 3.C, as well as under 246.6B for the 3-car garage, formerly 240-23I GIB. 240-10.2A states that pre-existing non-conforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. The board is asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E and whether or not the alteration creates any new nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformity created. The existing nonconforming setback is unaffected. The lot coverage by structure and lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking will remain well under the allowable thresholds. It does eliminate a significant nonconformity by removing the second dwelling. There's no impact to views and vistas. There's an existing garage there of similar size. The dwelling and the garage will remain in line with nearby homes in the neighborhood. As was noted in the file, an order of conditions was issued by the Conservation Commission, so they have approved this project. The project as proposed represents a significant improvement over the existing conditions. It actually provides the owners with garage space. It will not create any new nonconformities and will eliminate a significant nonconformity. It meets the requirements of 240-12.1E. There's no adverse effects, certainly none that overbalance the benefits were described. The site's more than adequate in size. The proposed garage does not change the nature of use. It only increases the owner's utilization of the property and has no impact on traffic flow and safety. Again, I believe that the board can and should grant the special permit. I'd be happy to address any questions that you might have.
So we'll be appointing Jerry on this, and we'll start with questions from the board with you, Jerry.
No questions.
Mark?
Nothing, just conditions.
I have nothing. Looks like a very nice project.
Yeah, another good project. Kevin, you're on a roll.
Let's not stop now.
Yeah, just as long as we're not tripwiring the accessory apartment provision, then it's a good project.
Tony?
Great project.
Yeah, there's no intent to use this as an accessory apartment. We discussed it, talked about it with the clients, and really what it is, it's overflow space for their family. There's only 3 bedrooms in the existing house. The existing garage dwelling is just not, it doesn't serve them well, and this addresses those needs and provides that overflow space.
Thank you.
Public comment? Sir?
Good evening. My name's Steve Haddad, and I used to live across the way. I actually sold the properties to the Ferrers, and I now live at 12 Burke Lane. But as Kevin had noted, when the Ferrers first purchased the property in 2009, they had to pass Title V with 2 cesspools. They took it upon themselves to add a brand-new Title V septic system. And I said to them at the time, I said, well, you have 2 bedrooms in the garage, you got 3 in the house, there's 5. Anybody who buys this property is probably gonna tear the house down, you wanna do 6, so they put a 6-bedroom septic system in. Since then, they have redone the house, they love the house. The garage is strictly meant for overflow adult children. They have 1 child, but he brings friends down. So when we first talked about this, I said, well, what about the stove? And they said, we don't ever use the stove, so they're just gonna take the stove out, eliminate the whole kitchen. And since we've started this project, or started this process, they have sold their home off Cape, had a 6,000 square foot barn, and now they got a pile of crap that they need to store here in Falmouth, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a technical term. So hence the need for the bigger garage and the storage space. So they're gonna take whatever living space was on the first floor of the garage, put it upstairs, and that's the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to close.
Motion to close by Suzanne. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Mark. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing is closed. No more testimony will be taken. How would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve with conditions?
Is there a second? Second is Suzanne. Findings?
Findings. It's in an RB zone. It's in West Falmouth, CPOD. Flood zone, VE 18 and AE 17, but not the garage. Lot size is 36,700. Public road. Now it's 8.46, and the proposed is gonna be 9.28. We do have to address the license issue.
We'll get that in conditions, yep.
Yep.
There is, findings that there is some encroachment on the public way.
I think that's all I have.
No intent to rent the,
Testimony is, no intent to
Right.
rent this. Testimony is that
Removal of
the
kitchen.
existing kitchen is going to be removed. The lot is adequate based on size and location. It's pre-existing non-conforming because the garage is on the front of the property, necessary due to topography at this point, and so on. Nonconformities will be reduced or eliminated by virtue of the special permit.
I had 21 foot high, is that, did I hit
21 feet 10 inches.
21, 10 feet high?
Any other findings? Conditions.
License for
Per
the
plans,
fence.
License,
License for the fence and the
I think it's
other
lighting,
encroachments.
Hedge, fence.
edge lighting, is it
Hedge
fence
gate,
too?
There's a gate.
Gate, right,
Edges, lamppost, gate.
yeah.
When do we generally require, is it for building permit or before certificate of occupancy?
So it does not have to be prior to them pulling the building permit, but probably prior to CO.
That's fine.
What we've typically done is had the application submitted prior to the building permit.
That's fine. Standard hours of work, kitchen to be removed.
All boards,
Yep. Standard, all comments from town boards.
no more
not
structures.
rentable. I know that was in the findings, but there should be a condition.
What was the condition, I'm sorry?
Not rentable.
Yes, not to be
Yeah, so
rented.
we'll have it say, single-family
Oh,
use only.
No other structures?
No, they've got plenty of.
Oh, they do
They've
have plenty
got
of room,
plenty of
sorry.
room.
Had a
Phase one,
shed.
two.
Concom might have a problem with it.
Yes.
The boathouse.
I think that's all, I think that's it.
Noreen, have we missed anything?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? That's a vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last hearing under new hearings this evening, we have 42-23 Rapucci, Briones, 24 Prospect Street, Falmouth, requesting a modification of special permit 42-96 to utilize the premise as a single-family dwelling and to allow additional habitable space on the second floor of the detached garage.
We have Paul J. Rapucci and Sarah Briones. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, 24 Prospect Street, Falmouth, Mass. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for modification of special permit 042-96 pursuant to sections 240-102A and 240-113A, parentheses 4, the Code of Falmouth, to utilize the premises as a single-family dwelling and to allow additional habitable space on the second floor of the detached garage. The property is on 24 Prospect. And from town departments, Fire Department has no issues. Water, the existing water line is not shown on the plan. If the garage second floor is potentially to be used for a second dwelling, a separate water service will be required. Engineering has, this application was reviewed for impacts to public rights-of-way and public utilities. Prospect Street is a public right-of-way in this area. No alterations are proposed in the right-of-way. Any changes within the right-of-way would require filing a permit with the engineering division. Any connections or alterations to public utilities will require permission from the appropriate town department. That was engineering. Concom has nothing. Board of Health. The exercise room meets the definition of a bedroom. The cased opening in the room labeled den and the elimination of a first-floor bedroom to become a living room puts the proposal at 3 bedrooms, 2 in the main house, 1 above the garage. This meets the 1995 Board of Health decision that limits the property to 3 bedrooms. And that's what I have. Oh, we have 9 letters of support and one letter of a different kind of support. I can't read it. 10 letters of support.
For the applicant,
we
good
have.
evening.
Good evening again, Kevin Clower, for the applicants Paul J. Rapucci and Sarah Briones, the owners of 24 Prospect Street. As was noted, they are seeking permission to modify an existing special permit, 42-96, which was issued in 1996. That special permit allowed the use of this dwelling as a two-family dwelling, actually, and noted that there's no habitable space to be allowed in a garage under that use. This property, 24 Prospect Street, was built in the 1930s. It's located just outside of downtown off of Walker Street. The lot is just shy of 5,000 square feet. It's 4,897. Presently, there's a two-family dwelling with a total of 3 bedrooms, a detached garage, and unfinished storage on the second floor of that garage. The footprint by structures is 1,438 square feet, which is 29.38%, where 20 is allowed by right and 25 by special permit. There's lots of nonconformities going on here. The dwelling itself is nonconforming front yard setback, 23 feet where 25 is required. Side yard setback of the dwelling is 2.5 feet where 10 is required. The garage is nonconforming, side yard setback 6.7 feet where 10 is required, and rear yard setback is 4.2 to the deck where 10 is required. Lot coverage by structure, as I noted, is 29.38%, where 20 is allowed by right and 25 by special permit. Though it is worth noting that until 2004, 35% lot coverage by right was allowed in this zoning district. The lot coverage by structure, paving, and parking is also non-conforming at 52%, where 40 is allowed. The special permit issued in 1996 allowed the use of the property as a two-family. There was an acknowledged history of that use. These applicants purchased this property in 2019, and they're seeking to use it only as a single-family dwelling. They'd like to utilize the space above the garage not as a separate dwelling, not as an accessory dwelling unit, only as additional space for themselves. The proposal will not alter the exterior of the buildings, the footprints, or the layouts, will remain as currently situated. They will eliminate the second kitchen, reconfigure certain rooms, and improve the habitability of both floors, and allow for use of space above the garage. The dwelling, the plan shows two bedrooms in the dwelling itself. The space above the garage likewise meets the definition of a bedroom. It's not intended to be used as such, but we still have to comply with that requirement. So these plans do comply, as noted in the Health Department referral. Under 240-10.2A, pre-existing non-conforming uses can be changed, provided they're not substantially more detrimental than what exists. Again, we're supposed to consider 240-12.1E and whether or not the change creates any new dimensional nonconformities. This proposal will not impact lot coverage by structures, will not impact lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking, or setbacks. It will actually take this from a special permit use to a use that is allowed by right. In effect, the only change the request makes is the removal of the existing special permit and the removal of the condition regarding the garage. There's no new nonconformity created. There's no change of an existing nonconformity. And the only practical change is to allow them to use this as a by right use. The proposed alteration is in no way substantially more detrimental than the current allowed use as a two-family. It represents a decrease in intensity and a use that's allowed within the district. There's no adverse effects to this, and certainly none that overbalance the benefits. It meets the requirements of 240-10.2A and 240-12.1E. For these reasons, I'd ask that this board grant the special, or request to modify the special permit. I'll be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Start with you, Jerry.
Got to appoint some.
I'm going to appoint Tony on this one, but we're going to start questions with you.
No question.
Mark?
John?
I have nothing.
I'm all set for now.
In one of the abutters supporting letters, they did mention parking. Mary Clower, just any additional color you could give us on?
No, I mean, this is, you know, this is actually going to decrease the required parking by going from two-family down to one. Their parking will remain on lot. They're not intending to rent this or use it for anything other than their own use, so there's no increase in parking, and I think they're happy to keep their cars on their lot.
Yeah, it seems like they did some nice upgrades to it, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Tony?
So,
Tony, I'll come back to you.
so this would be conditioned as non-rentable, this garage?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And there's no, you know, it's not intended to be an accessory dwelling unit. It's not intended to be rentable space. It is just making use of the space that they have.
I have no further questions.
Public comment. Sir?
Good evening. My name is Todd Davis, and I'm here as an abutter, speaking for my family that owns 55 Counting House Way, which abuts it in the rear. As the attorney said, it is non-conforming. We oppose any project that changes the use or changes the past judgment on the use of that space. That property's been in our family for over 50 years, spanning 4 generations, and we feel that the previously approved special permit addressed the concerns of everybody. We primarily don't have any issue with what they're doing with the main house. It's the garage. We're opposed to the application for the construction of the bathroom and finished inhabitable occupiable space on the second floor of the detached garage specifically. Regarding the attorney's inference on impact, there is quite an impact on us. The existing deck and slider on the detached garage has been a source of consternation as it directly overlooks our backyard. There's been problems in the past with this deck's usage. I know that that the owners have said that that won't be an issue, but who knows who will be the owners, and that does not assuage our consternation. As I said, the deck and slider's proximity are an intrusion of our privacy and safety. And frankly, it's rather creepy the way it is. It's like having somebody like right there, right where these split systems are up there, looking down. And the setback, I think, is less than 7 feet. We can appreciate the owner wanting to improve his property, but not where I'm here to convey our interests. And our interests are that you uphold, or you consider upholding the previous ruling of the zoning board, which was based on a self-inflicted hardship from the previous owner, where he operated a business and had people living in an illegal apartment up above the garage. So we feel that adding that bathroom and make that a habitable space, in essence making that a bedroom, you could create a possibility where a business could be run out of there as well, such as an Airbnb. Now, the current owners might say, oh, that's never going to happen. Well, who's going to police it? The building inspector? I work with the state building inspector every day. He said it's impossible to run down all this stuff. It's incumbent upon you to look at this thing deeply and look at the ramifications it's going to have, because it's going to be long-lasting, long after Mr. Rapucci and I are here. So this is going to be forever. We feel that the modification to the special permit for the change of use in that detached garage, that they do not meet the burden as required by Mass General law. I appreciate your tolerance and latitude. Thank you.
Board have any questions for the butter?
Is there someone living in that garage right now?
In the garage? Not that I know of.
When I
no.
went up today, a person came out of it.
No, not that I know of. They have made modifications to the outside, and we're not adverse to that. It's the fact that if that becomes a habitable space, those back stairs and the deck that overlooks our backyard is now going to be occupied. It's at a much greater frequency than it is now. And as this application is currently configured, we're against it because of that. You know, in the past, we had unsavory people that stayed up there, and they're looking down, throwing bottles. I mean, it was a complete nightmare for my family. So, so we don't want to revisit that. I mean, Mr. Rapucci can say whatever he wants, and his lawyer can say whatever they want, but these are realities. This happened. We lived through that. So I ask you to take that into consideration. We want to be good neighbors. We are good neighbors, but we have to think of our interests too. And you know, the zoning board decision back in '96. You know, their sage decision allowed them to have two bedroom. Now they're eliminating that. That's a smart move. You know, it opens up space so they could use it.
Two-family,
But as far, yeah, the two-family, eliminating the two-family. But to make a bedroom up over the garage and have to go through this again, I'm sorry. It's just so, it's so upsetting. I can't tell you how upsetting it really is.
Could they put up a visual obstruction that you would be okay with, where, looking at the deck, where it's just basically a three-rail deck configuration? Is there a way that they might be able to put some obstruction up there, so they can't visually look back into your backyard?
The simplest thing to do would take the slider out, take the deck off, and put it out front, if they want to reuse it that bad. Or have the stairs built on the inside. I built houses for 20 years. I'm an engineer. I work for the state. I don't have any problem with somebody bettering their property, but it's a detriment, and it's a, I don't even know what the word to use. It was a nightmare, and we don't want to live through that again. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but if you looked at the property and see the proximity of the deck,
Yeah, no, I have it.
and the stairs to our property, you understand our consternation.
Yep.
And it's not unfounded, because you know, but we lived through it. You know, I have nothing against Mr. Rapucci or his wife, and, you know, I'm just trying to convey to you, you know, our qualms. I don't know if I did it good enough, but
Are there follow-up questions, any other public comment?
Well, I'm in the same house,
Come on up, ma'am.
and I have stuff written out, but I think he covered it pretty well.
You mind just identifying yourself for the
Margaret
record? and-
Davis,
Thank you.
55 County House Way. So I'm very concerned because we did live through this. And I just want you to please consider why the board, the previous board, made the decision that it made. There were many problems. We couldn't use much of our house. We couldn't use the back porch, the backyard, one of the upstairs bedrooms. It's just the noise and the looking down, and I don't see the need to have water in that garage. I mean, the board made a decision. They were given, you know, concessions at the time. And I don't think anything's changed. We were here 3 years ago on this same matter. We came to 4 meetings, you know, during COVID. It wasn't easy. We made the meetings because it's so important to us. That's it.
Does the board have follow-up
Thank you.
questions based on the comments of the abutter for the applicant? Or
I have-
follow-up
you
questions in
had-
general?
I have for Attorney Clower.
And I have a question for him.
Oh, wait a minute.
am I all set?
May I ask a
Tony, go
question?
right ahead.
Of the abutter. So your primary concern is that deck and the sliding door in the back because it overlooks your property. Is that the primary concern?
Yes.
And a privacy screen on the deck probably would not suffice, is that what you're saying?
It would be better than nothing, but it's not gonna decrease the traffic and the noise and any partying that might happen up there. Let's say he sells it. Let's say a guy comes in with some young kids. They want to party, you know how it is. We have to live through that, and we did live through that, and they weren't kids.
So it isn't just about the deck and the sliding door overlooking your property. Even if they moved it to an interior stair or a stair coming on the side, it would still be the issue of potentially partying in this back
Well,
garage area?
it's definitely a concern, but if there's no windows or nothing in that gable end, then that would mitigate a lot of our issues.
So you would rather see them eliminate the sliding door, eliminate the
Absolutely.
deck in the back,
Absolutely.
put a sliding door on the side and instead of stairs going in
Not
that way?
necessarily the side,
Or the front?
on the front gable.
But that would eliminate the use of the garage below?
Why would that?
I don't know. I'm asking.
No.
So you're, all right, thank you.
I mean,
Fence there, right? I don't think you used the garage below.
I don't
Okay.
think that, yeah, I
I
don't
did
think
not
they
get out
use
to
the
the
garage
property.
as for parking.
Scott, did you have a question for?
I mean,
Tony?
we're more than happy to work with the Rapucci's, if they want to, or if you want us to, but, I mean, as it is now, we definitely vehemently oppose it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a
Thank you,
question
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for
You
your
have a question
service.
Thank you.
Attorney Clower?
So, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, I think you've heard from the board and from, you know, the immediate butter, what, you know, some of these modifications to what's in front of us today could hopefully appease the abutters, you know, I'm
Sure.
looking at the picture of the garage. Maybe there is a way to flip everything around to over the existing garage door, which would take all of those issues away. It's gonna obviously
well, I mean,
require
it's
an
a sig-
additional.
It's a significant cost, too.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we can't atone for the sins of past owners, and we're being held to account for the sins of past owners, which I don't think is appropriate. I think that, you know, this would still be pursuant to a special permit, which would still have conditions which remain enforceable. I spoke with the applicant, they'd be happy to put privacy screening along the fence in order to address the concern of them peering into the backyard, which is, I don't think is anything they're trying to do. But they'd be happy to put privacy screening along the back of the deck. But to say, you know, it's very easy to say, just flip it to the front, but that's a significant change in cost and expense. And I think that it's not necessary because we're not talking about this as an accessory dwelling. We're not talking about this even as a bedroom. It meets the definition, but we're not using it as a bedroom. This is additional space. It's a workout room is what they're intending it for. So, you know, I hear the neighbors' concerns, but I think that they're not founded in this case. And I think that the board, by modifying a special permit, it remains, the conditions remain, which are enforceable by the building commissioner and the zoning enforcement officer. I think that there are reasonable steps that can be taken, such as privacy screening that addresses their primary concern. You want to put a condition that there's no partying in the garage, we can certainly live with that. But I think that that would truly identify their concern about privacy. And beyond that, there are enforceable conditions that the board can place into the decision.
Thank you. I understand your response, and again, what I'd hope that we can do somehow here is to get both parties to understand that there is an issue with the abutter, and if there's a way that we can help them to feel like things are gonna be much better than what they had in the past is definitely the goal from my perspective only. But thank you for your response.
Did you have a question, Mark?
Yeah. I kind of see this as, you know, the views and vistas when you're less than 10 feet. And removing the deck would decrease the nonconformity. And if it is in fact going to be used as a workout room or an extension or whatever, there's no way to even get a car in there and with the fence and use the garage as it is. I'm kind of listening to the abutter.
Jerry?
I was just wondering if anything could be gained by a continuation to see if they could get together with the abutter, come up with some specifics.
Not unreasonable.
Is public comment closed?
We had moved on. I'm certainly happy to introduce. Could you please step up to the microphone and identify yourself, please, ma'am? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Brianis, and my husband and I co-own the property. And we've been there for 4 years, and we have 10 letters from our direct neighbors, and these neighbors are right behind us, and I completely understand their concerns. But in the last 4 years, we have been great neighbors. We don't throw parties. We adhere to the 10 o'clock rule. As a matter of fact, like, we're annoyed when other people are noisy after 10 o'clock. I understand that the slider and looking into their backyard would feel creepy, and I think that we could figure out a way to either get rid of that or figure out something else. But the front of the garage is it's in a fenced-in area, but we have a garage door that we use to go up and down, and we store, you know, all our bicycles and stuff like that in there. So we can't put anything in the front, but we probably could figure out something where we had a doorway in the back and get rid of the slider. And a door is a lot less intrusive than a slider. But I just want to say that we have 10 letters of support that we could read into the record, including the 2 abutters on each side of us who are in support of it, because they know that we're great neighbors. And I just wanted an opportunity to say that.
Mark?
Keeping the garage door doesn't preclude you from putting the deck in the front and the door as well. I mean, it would even be nicer. I mean, you could be closer to your house. I mean,
We can look down on our own property.
as opposed to his. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
letters from the neighbors, I mean, he's directly behind you. I mean, he does have a legitimate
Right, but
argument.
I just wanted to point out that I get that there was a lot that happened in the past when they were renting out the first floor, the second floor, and someone was living over that garage space. And even though we want to consider it a bedroom, right now it's storage space, so we're in and out of there to get things out or put things in, but we're making it a workout space. That's what we want to do with it. So we would put in, writing that we never have any intention of renting it out, and we would put that in writing. And if there ever is any loud noises, like there's a quiet rule after 10 o'clock, and, that's what that rule's in place for. So I just wanted to say that we have every intention of being good neighbors.
I think that she had an interesting suggestion, which was the removal of the slider, which seems to be a point of concern. In addition to privacy screening, could go an awful long way towards addressing this as a concern that doesn't necessarily involve relocating a significant elevated deck and slider onto the front side of the building, which is a not insubstantial undertaking. So I think that, we are offering some solutions and compromise here that should be considered.
Jerry?
Would that include shortening the deck? I mean, if it's a workout room, the purpose of the deck would seem not as necessary as if it was a full bedroom or something like that. Cutting the deck in half, I don't know if the neighbors.
I mean, it's 5 feet wide. I don't think it'd have a deck that would be 3 feet, 2.5, 3.
No, it's 18 feet long.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
It's not the width, it's the length.
Hi, my name's Paul Rapucci. I'm one of the owners of the property. We have been really good neighbors, and our house was easily the worst house on the street. And we can attest to what the abutters say, but that was before we owned it. We've been such great neighbors. We've improved the property so much. 10 letters of support from our neighbors speak volumes. And if you're gonna start denying balconies that overhang other properties in Falmouth, I think you got a lot of work to do there, because there's many properties with balconies that overhang and overlook other yards. But we're great neighbors. In all due respect, we've seen them since we've owned it in 2019. We've seen them maybe 3 times total. They don't live there full-time, and we hardly have ever seen them, anybody there. We would properly screen it. If that's what it takes, we would screen the whole deck to give privacy. We're quiet people. We're not gonna cause problems for them at all. So that's all I have to say.
What's the second floor in the garage used for right now?
Storage.
No one stays there, sleeps there, nothing?
No, it's gutted. It's totally gutted at this point.
Not since the last special permit.
Any other public comment?
Are we allowed to rebut?
If you want to say something briefly, sir, sure.
I'd like to just say that what the Rapucci say is probably true about them being good neighbors, but we have to look at, they might not own the property next year. They might not own the property next month. The decisions that you make here have long-lasting ramifications, and I know you understand that. They're looking at it from their point of view. We're looking at it from our point of view. You need to look at it from the public's point of view, and quite frankly, framing the deck in front is not a big deal, to be honest with you. Or why even need a deck? Why can't you have the stairs on the inside if you want to make it a workout room? Why does that have to be why does it have to be a bathroom for a workout room? The house is 40 feet away. You're basically making that an apartment. And with Airbnbs everywhere nowadays, legal and illegal, that's a major concern of ours. Now, whether the Rapucci's have any designs to do that, that's irrelevant. What about any future owner? If that's in place, then they can just come in and pretty much say, oh, we just got to do this, we got to put a kitchen in here. I mean, that's what we're concerned about. You know, we're concerned about the long-lasting ramifications of this property. It's not our primary property, I'll tell you that, but we use it. And we've been using it for years. And as far as the deck in the back and putting up a screen, why do you need the deck in the back? Why
Well,
is that
it's
necessary?
existing, right? I mean, it is existing today. What we're trying to help you
Yeah, I understand.
is to screen so that you mentioned, and you mentioned it twice, is that you have an issue with the ability of them to look into your backyard.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
we on the board, or from my own perspective, we're trying to do everything in our power to make sure that we heard you.
Yeah.
And we're looking at screening and possibly reducing the slider to just a personnel door. It seems like they're trying to do things also
If you
that
were
are in your
gonna,
best
if you're gonna
interest.
keep the door on that side, then why not just come up to a landing like this gentleman said and cut the deck down? If that would be,
Would that be amenable to you?
it's
Top
not
of the stairs and a
ideal,
landing
but
and a regular door and the slider goes
it's,
away?
I gotta be honest with you, it's not ideal, but if that's,
Well,
the cards that
nothing's
were dealt.
ideal. I mean, that's why we're here. This is kind of the end of the
no,
line.
I don't understand, I just don't understand why they can't, take the stairs down, take the, frame in the, remove the slider, frame that in, and if, what they wanna do inside, why can't they have the stairs on the inside of the building?
If they had
That
the
would have no
stairs,
impact on us, virtually.
if they had the stairs on the side, just a landing and a regular entrance door,
Yeah,
wouldn't that alleviate 85% of your complaint? There's gonna be nobody sitting on the deck. I mean,
what size,
it's,
how far down are you gonna cull that deck?
well, I mean, a sufficient amount to open a regular entry door, make it 5 feet or something like that. Would that assuage you? I mean, there's nobody gonna be sitting on it anymore.
It's,
In the future, they might find out that they
what
like
about
the
the
deck on
fact,
the front.
yeah, all right, what about the fact that that this place is gonna be an inhabitable space, which is in conflict with the previous, decision?
Well, that gave them a
You know,
two-family
I mean,
in the
fact
eyes of
that-
this
The
board.
fact that they're, excuse me, the fact that they're, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
The fact that they're proposing to reduce the bedrooms in the main dwelling is irrelevant to the original,
Excuse me now.
the original thing,
In the eyes of this
decision.
board, it's a reduction of use.
That's, it says up to
It's not
three
a
bedrooms.
two-family anymore.
But
I
it
mean,
says up to 3 buildings in the previous decision. Nobody said that they had to do it.
Does the board have any additional questions?
I have none.
My suggestion with this one is, I think we should have some discussion about where we are before we close, and then we can, the applicant may have a request at that point, or, so, who would like to start?
Well,
Go ahead, you go.
the abutter has very some valid concerns. I think it looks as though the stairs, the stringers to that stairwell are fairly new. If there's a way that we can readjust those, obviously, we don't want the landing to wind up right on their fence line, so if there's a way that that could be switched around and change out the slider to some sort of a privacy door, I think that hopefully, it probably won't do everything, but I think that that would go a long way from my perspective to get to a yes on this.
Moving the stairs in any fashion is gonna affect the second parking space down in the driveway, so I think you're limited to just a landing around the back and a regular entry door.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can we do? I mean, they're not gonna be sitting there drinking and throwing beer bottles on the guy's lawn anymore, because there's just gonna be a landing.
I agree.
Seems like a,
If we were to do a landing, would the board still be looking for some sort of like privacy lattice, or is that not necessary if it's not really a space you can spend time?
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think,
what would it be, one piece of lattice anyway? I mean,
Tony?
I think that if I like the idea of eliminating the sliding door, putting just a passage door in, a landing, set of stairs,
5 feet.
but privacy screening along that landing, and actually, I would say at least partway down the stairs if that's possible, at least at the top. Make it so that no one can hang out.
Suzanne?
I'm on board,
He's on board.
yeah, with the door and the landing. Yeah.
What do we call that, 5 feet? Gives you plenty of room to work with, 3-foot door, 5-foot landing?
It's a gambrel, so you can't put a doorway to the one side, it's a gambrel side.
Okay, so we'll give you 6.
I'd say, we'll have to speak to the architect. There is an architect involved. We'll tell them to move it as far to the south as they can, but I would hope that we can defer to the architect's recommendation there.
So I recall when this project was back before us in the land of Zoom hearings, and
It was a very different application, though.
yes, absolutely, and I recognize the fact that we went from overwhelming neighborhood opposition, I would classify it as, to significant improvement. I think the abutters do have some concerns. I think the board has made it fairly clear what would get most likely to yes at this point. Would you be opposed to a continuance to rework your plan?
Not at all.
Work with your,
We need to, we need a little bit of time to speak with the architect and have plans revised, so,
It's not that difficult to go measure 80.
no, I'm just
inches.
thinking with the holiday and
Yeah.
actually getting stuff accomplished. I'm just trying to think from a timing perspective.
When's the next available?
We have a meeting on the 20th, but we would have enough members here to vote, right? If you're absent.
I'm here.
So,
Yeah,
right,
Frank will be here, so
so,
we got Tony.
does that give you enough time, July 20th?
I
So
inquire for the abutters too, if they're available that evening. I
So
wanna
for the
make sure
20th, we'd have to have something in by the 11th.
For the 27th?
I think the 27th gives us a little more wiggle room, just because I don't know what people's schedule is next week and getting stuff accomplished. And I don't want to be submitting stuff late,
Thank you.
so.
You available on the 27th, sir?
The 20th will be better.
I mean, it's really not that difficult to measure up to see where a door is going in, especially if the place is gutted. 3 weeks?
So I would just say, I'm relying on outside parties in order to get the plans prepared. I'm happy to try for the 20th. The issue is we have what's effectively a 3-day week next week. I don't know if the architect's even working next week. I can try to get this done for the 20th, but if we schedule for the 20th and I don't have it, then we're not looking at the 27th, we're looking at another date further out.
My suggestion is,
Would
why
it
don't-
be possible to share these plans with you electronically? In other words, if Kevin sends them in to us, if you give us your email, we could send them along to you to see if it seems to comport with what you would like?
Certainly.
why don't we mark it for the 20th? If, for whatever reason, you can't get it done, I certainly recognize what happens during the week of the 4th.
Okay.
May I ask one more question, sir?
Certainly.
Come up to the
Right over the
microphone,
microphone, sir.
so everybody can hear you.
Excuse me. My ignorance. As you can see, it is a gambrel, so when they frame that, they're gonna have to extend that deck further than what we were agreeing to. But alls we ask is that you don't put a door wider than a 3-foot door in there.
Well, when I was saying 5 or 6 feet, I was saying beyond, the entrance. I mean,
Yeah,
how far is that door gonna be over from the corner of the house? Not more than 16 inches, 18 inches.
well, you got this pitch right here. If you put a 6'6" door in there, as opposed to a 6'8" door,
I want to leave this to the architects, because I know you're an engineer, I am definitely not. It's too much mathematics.
alls I ask is that we keep it as far to the landing as possible.
Do you have your instructions, Mr. Clower, based on the, okay.
certainly the intent, but, I would just say, I'm gonna defer to the architect.
All we gotta do is gonna come right to here.
We're good.
And not from an aesthetic standpoint, from a.
Certainly. So, I think it's a motion to continue to July 20th.
Second.
I'll give that to you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? That's a vote.
Thank you, we appreciate your
Thank you.
time again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, because you get framing that goes
Did we withdraw Delaney?
We didn't do Delaney.
The last on the agenda is a request to withdraw permit application 4423 Delaney, 90 Priscilla Street T-Ticket. We've had a request to withdraw the application without prejudice. Do we need to do, I'll entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
That's Mark, is there a second?
Second.
Give that to Scott. Does the board need to have any discussion on the request? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The application is withdrawn without prejudice.
Thank you on that one as well.
Remember,
Tony
have a
was
good
the
time
voting-
on the 4th, pick up a 5th
Tony was
on
the
the
voting
3rd.
member on that, right?
Yes.
Yes, say yes, Tony.
Yes.
Board discussion we have left. Number 4.
So the letter we submitted for additional legal assistance for 40B, when did the select board kind of take that up for review,
So
or do we
the
know?
select board is next meeting on July 10th, I believe it is.
I think you're right.
But in the interim, the new town manager wanted to follow up with the chair and myself and with our town council to discuss the matter.
Okay, good, thank you. Thanks for
That's
the update.
scheduled.
That's scheduled, I don't know my date
For
book right in front of
the,
me.
what, 5th,
5th
I
at
think?
3:30 at town manager's office. Any other new matters of board discussion? Board updates. Let's read a statement to the board. We've received some feedback concerning potentially objectionable statements that have been made by board members during a recent hearing. It could be viewed as inappropriate characterizations. As appointed public officials, we are charged with the code of conduct and how we conduct ourselves in the business of the board. Board members are expected to be prepared, review submissions, make site visits, and then bring their life experience and common sense when rendering a decision. Board members are expected to give whatever they feel is the appropriate amount of weight to applications and evidence presented in support or against the project. As a quasi-judicial body, we are charged with making discretionary decisions. Those decisions can significantly affect a person's property or business. The board's decisions are appealable by an aggrieved party, and the record of our deliberations will be reviewed in the land or superior court. A reviewing court generally will give the zoning board of appeals decision great deference if the record and reasoning is not arbitrary or capricious and the action taken is grounded in some rational basis. When offering an opinion on evidence or a project, I would remind and ask all board members to choose their words carefully, avoid personal references or characterizations, and utilize tact. The best definition I've ever heard comes from Harry Truman. Tact is the ability to step on a man's toes without messing up the shine on his shoes.
And who was that from?
That was from me, as the chair to the board.
Thank you.
And I certainly have been guilty of making questions and comments over the years in my 5.5 years that have ruffled a few feathers or scuffed up a man's shine in their shoes. So, any other board updates?
I have none.
Future agenda items?
Time to adjourn.
So we will reconvene, actually, we will do board reorganization at the end of July. It will be a little later than usual. People wish to, if anyone is considering running for the chair, please let me know. I'm happy to step aside if need be, or let one of the other officers know. So our next meeting is July 20th, 2023, 6:30 here in the Select Board's meeting room.